We're good? All right, last day, the film before the film, the penultimate screening that you can see. And you picked a really good one, I promise. Because we also have a very special guest, which I want to tout and tell you about, and I hope that I can convince you to stay because she's incredible, who'll be here after the screening. Before we get started, my name is Amanda Salazar. I'm a programmer here at the Sonoma International Film Festival. I'm here to welcome you on our final day on the screening before the last screening of the 27th Annual Sonoma International Film Festival. I hope you've been having a good time while you've been here and seen some great movies, or if this is your first movie, welcome. For first-timers and people that have seen, I think I was, polling the audience and someone's seen like 18 feature films in the time they've been here. So, and they're going into 20, which I'm like, yes, I love it. So anywhere in between. Before I get started, I would like to thank a few of our sponsors because without them, we would not be able to do what we do best. I would like to thank Delta Airlines and KHR Family Funds for their support for this year's festival. I'd like to give a big thank you to our venue managers and the two people that have been here for most of our evening screenings running this is Isabel in the back and also Natalie, who probably checked you in. A big thank you to them. I would also like to thank our volunteers. Those all people deserve a round of applause. Yeah. And then also I'd like to give a big thank you to our projectionist. I believe it's Cameron. Cameron's in the back. I'm getting the nod from Isabel. Like, okay, because sometimes I don't know who's back there. Maybe he's on lunch break. But a big thank you to Cameron, who's been holding down this venue, making sure everything sounds and looks great. So getting into Someday I Will Tell You Everything, this is a very special film. It is so gorgeously shot, which you're going to see from the opening scene. I would say, like, once this film comes on screen, it's a rather beautiful, sensual film that I'm really looking forward to being in conversation with afterwards, which I will say I'm trying to convince you stay. We have the filmmaker Emily Atef is here. She loves also getting feedback and interest in conversation with US audiences. So she's not from the US, the film is not from the US, and she would love to hear what you all think of it. So I will be in conversation with Emily afterwards. Something she did want me to mention, she's off seeing a movie right now. So I feel like she's having a good time in Sonoma. If there's a reason to miss your introduction, it's to see another movie. Emily did mention this is her first adaptation of a book, so we will definitely get into that and what that's been like for her in her process, but just wanted to leave you with that. She has made a couple other feature films before, which we can of course talk about if you have any questions about her process. So with that, I would like to have you go ahead and silence your cell phones and put them away and not access them during the screening. If you do need to use the restroom or leave the theater in any way, you're going to exit the same way that you came in. And with that, I think I'm just going to tell us all, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thank you so much. Because we want to be in conversation with you in this incredible film. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You all, that's like a great penultimate movie, right? It's pretty remarkable. So I did prep the audience just a little bit in my introduction about kind of this being an adaptation, your first adaptation.
Yeah.
So I always like to start at the seed or where you began. So can you talk about that and then what that adaptation, what that was like, what that process was like for you? So where did this story begin for you?
I mean, Daniela Krien, the novelist, she's become very prolific and quite famous in Germany. This was her first novel, 2011. I read it 2012, and I've never read a novel that was so cinematic and where I really saw the film from the beginning to the middle till the end. So it's like, it's really a gift, because it takes so long to write scripts and it takes so long to work an idea you have, and there you just have it. And it works. Though it was all in the head of Maria, so that was also, but physically, and the nature and the way she describes the senses, the smell, the sweat, the sex, the insects, the light, that summer. But the rights were taken. And when the rights are taken by another production company, you're not allowed to know who it is.
Of course.
And so I was always looking every 6 months, a year, so when's this film going to be made? Maybe they don't have a director.
Yeah.
I was asking my agent, what do you think? No, nothing. Can you call the publishing? Yeah, no. And so I remember it was one winter I was still living in Berlin. One winter morning, I was very frustrated with everything taking so much time. And I found her email online, and I wrote her. And I told her, I know this, you know, your novel is optioned already, but I so love your world. Is there anything else that you have? And these are I'd done at that time 3 features. These are the trailers, and if you don't know the films, I'll send you DVDs. And then she wrote me back like 45 minutes later. My heart was like pounding, and then we became friends.
Oh, wow.
She loved
Incredible.
my films, and
I mean, let's be honest. If only just seen this one, we love your films too. So okay, go on.
and so we decided to do something together. And during this time, the people who were writing the script, who had optioned it, I'd never talked about it, but it was not at all what she expected when she read it.
Oh.
And they took too long, so the option had to be renewed. So that's when you could go back to, and she said, I'm not going to renew it with you.
Wow.
And then she said, you're going to do it.
Oh my gosh, that's remarkable.
Yeah, so that was really good. And it was basically an Oscar-winning director who's very, quite famous in Germany, who'd wanted to do it. And I was telling her she was having a lot of financial difficulties, and I said to her, just do it with her because you'll know it's going to be made and big, but it's just very conventional what she does. This other
director,
and Daniela isn't at all like that, and so I'm very, very lucky that she just couldn't say yes because it hurt her so badly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have many questions to follow up here, and 3 come to mind. So I want to go back to actually you finding this book.
Yeah.
Like, was this just a random, you walk into a bookstore? Like,
No. It's, I had done 3 prior feature films, co-written with one co-writer, scriptwriter, and she knew that I had a fable, can you say that? Yeah, fable for nature, rawness, and also sexuality.
Yeah.
In film. And when she read it, she thought, this is for you. Read it.
Oh, wow.
So she gave it to me.
Oh, what a great recommendation.
Yeah.
Just to put you on the track for another 10 years of your plus
Yeah.
years of your life if you
Yeah.
read that book in 2012.
And the thing is I knew I was born in West Berlin when the wall was still up, but not German. My father's from Iran, my mom's from France, and they met in the 60s in West Berlin. So I know Germany very well, but I was always a foreigner, and that's why. And it was really interesting when I came back to Germany, 2001, to go to film school there. I had people in my class from East Germany. I could really, there's still a terrible, like, misunderstanding and bitterness between these 2 folks, especially the East Germans.
Right.
And from outside, it's just so much easier to see than being in there. Yeah, because a lot of West Germans, extremely arrogant, they were, and they took over for a good thing. But
Right.
as we see it, there was the winners and the losers
Absolutely.
from after the war, and it just went too fast. And some people gained from it, and a lot of people got, left behind because
Right.
they weren't fast enough, because they were in factories making things that had absolutely no more use, like screws for Russian tanks.
Right.
And then they lost, and so for me it was really, really important that I have somebody to adapt it with me that came from East Germany.
Okay.
Because I couldn't, I wouldn't have that language, and I wouldn't have that experience at all.
To provide a different perspective. It's
Totally.
incredibly smart. A lot of filmmakers, I would say, wouldn't do that. They would just take it on, and that's really.
And so the best person to do that was her,
Yes.
Daniela. And so I asked her, would you please, adapt your novel with me? And she's very humble and says, well, I don't know how to write scripts. I says, it's so not that difficult. When you have a novel that's so cinematic and where the dialogues are so cinematic already, and don't worry, I will be there.
Right.
We're
I'll
doing
provide
it
the other
together.
language.
I'll provide the other language. What we can't do, what is impossible, because it's much more, I mean, it's translated in English if any of you want to read it, and you'll see it's even more crass. I mean, especially the sexuality, things that you cannot show on screen, some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's which is incredible when you read it, but so it was a wonderful process, and it was the easiest process I've ever had in writing a script.
Yeah.
It was really, because we got on, we were so on the same wavelength, and because the book was so easy to adapt.
I mean, it's truly an incredible story, and everything that's coming to mind with you talking about this, even like a crassness of language. What really struck me in the film, and having just watched, I was just saying I sat in the back because I hadn't seen it on the big screen. And I think that experience alone allows you really to feel something bigger than you. And these moments of like delicate sensuality, and I mean that not even between the shared bodies of like the wheat fields or the fields and kind of the way you shot the light. But then with this harshness of like sexual energy. And however you feel about it is that it's these bursts, and so you feel these kind of like emotional tugs, while the background is this, as you're saying, this kind of moment in history where it's uncomfortable, maybe is the right word, or there's other words that come to mind. And I think that to me is why this film is so layered. And you take a journey with Maria, but there's so much else happening. And so I'm curious, in everything that I was just saying about how you as a filmmaker were ensuring those moments popped, and where to go sensual, where to go, not just, again, I think in the script, because you have actors and the DP. Like, when I say that, what comes to mind for you as a filmmaker?
It was something that was very, very important for me in this film is the silences.
Yeah.
And how we just so do not need to use words to just to express the avalanche is happening in us.
Yes, avalanche. That's the word. Oh my gosh!
know.
Right.
and also the nature, and what's happening, what chaos it was at that time, where one country from a moment to the other disappeared, and another one was formed. The chaos was very visible in the cities, but in the countryside it was slow. Because you continue at 5 a.m., to get the milk from the cows, and at 5, everything was slower, but, just creeping, As says, in a fantastic way for some, like for the father who the farmers got their land back. And for others, like the brother lost their job. So everything is changing slowly.
Whereas then, just to add in, and then Johannes, you have this like hopeful opportunity for a new life. That you're like, oh, this young spirit gets to now go be an artist.
Yes, which would not be possible 3 years prior to that, because it was too individual.
Yes.
If you're going to be an artist, then it's for the community and not for your own search. And totally.
So then can you talk about those silences a bit with your actors? Because again, they all, especially like Maria and
Henna.
Oh yes, thank you. Henna, when they led with their body language and just how I'm so curious then as a director, how to ensure it felt safe, how it felt that they could have that freedom to kind of carry their emotional weight without words.
It was a long process of work.
Okay.
We started because the biggest challenge for me to do this project was that the DNA of the project was the sexual attraction, physical animal attraction between these two characters, but that she was very young, meaning the actress was going to be very young,
Right.
very little experience, and for sure not an experience like that. And,
Right.
you know, I mean, I would have been lucky if it happened, but of course it wasn't going to be
Right.
the case. So that was, for us all, for the producer, for the team, it was the most challenging. Who's going to be Maria? And when we find her, how can I, you know, protect them both? How, the biggest word is always between actors and directors is trust. Yes. Here, big time. They had to trust me because the material, also the novel they read, and the script was so sexual, and they had to trust each other. They had to trust the team, the small team, the cameraman, and so we worked with an intimacy coach two months prior, just even to cast them. I saw 60 girls, and then I saw the ones where I felt they were probably 8 of them, they could be good. And then the intimacy coach came, and I already had him. And just to see, because it was so important to find a actress that felt she could do it, you know, because I can't have somebody saying, oh yeah, no, it's fine, and then all of a sudden get cold feet. Yeah, which is totally understandable. So we had to really, in the second casting, really work physically as well with the intimacy coach. Of course, totally, you know, dressed and everything. But just to see, and also to see how both actors, how their energy and their aura connected, because it was so important that it just clicks. Yeah, because they're great actors, but if they can't, this is such a sensual piece and so animal-like, if they can't smell each other, we will feel it. Absolutely. I totally believe that.
No, I mean, I will say this. I think that intuition maybe that you're talking about is really felt on like it comes through, and I think that's where you as a director and feeling that and that aura or connection is very palpable. And what I admire about the actress that you chose is she's so able to carry this like freedom of her body, if that makes sense. I don't mean to speak in an objective way, but she carries herself with such kind of like confidence of what you would as a 19-year-old. Yeah. And then there's these moments, I think what's one of the most powerful is where she like slaps him back, you know, and she gets to, you like feel it in her body of like, this is my limit. Yeah. But in a safe space of like her, but there's still sexual desire there. That's a very rare thing. And you never falter with them as a couple. You completely believe this like ardent love between them, or animalistic, whatever might be. Love is where they're at, you know, as they're describing it. So in building that trust then, can you talk then also about working with Henner? I mean, you clearly said you casted him before. What was it about him? Or did you cast him? Did you know he was going to be in the role? Kind of talk about him.
Well, I definitely wanted somebody from East Germany, and most of them are. Most of these actors are from East Germany, and most of them, you know, the older also generation, they all lived it. Yeah. They all had parents lived it. Henna was a teenager when it happened, and so that was very important. And my casting director she passed last year. She was the most famous casting director in Germany, you know, who did so many important films. And she had a method. Usually casting directors, when you come there and say, okay, I want to work with you, this is my script, these are the actors I want, they usually give you, for Henna, for example, 30 actors of that age group, and say, okay, to kind of feel who do you want and stuff like that. And she had this method where she would only give you 1 or 2, because she thought about it so much. And she'd sit you down. It was almost kind of mysterious. She'd walk behind you, and you'd be like, okay, it's coming. She's gonna set them down, the pictures, and it was. And then she just set down one picture for Henna, and it was him. Wow. And I was like, and the guy almost only did TV, and I don't watch German TV so much. Yeah. It's not very good, except sometimes, but rarely. Okay. There was one thing that I saw, though. It was like sketches, comedy sketches about like Waiting for Godot from Samuel Beckett. It's 2 guys waiting for the bus. It's called Waiting for the Bus. 2 guys from East Germany kind of losers waiting for the bus, and they're kind of in love with the bus driver woman that comes by once a day. And the guy was so good and so precise, and also in the humor, and it's very different to Henna. But then when she put that picture, I said, I know that guy, and somehow then I met him, and he was just so right.
Yeah, he's right.
He's
for sure.
really
Yeah.
right. He has something very attractive in a very raw kind of way, but he has also something broken and dark, but also soft. So it had a lot. And to be honest, the big challenge, if I talk about challenge, is if I'd done this film in 2012, it would have been, because Me Too hadn't happened yet, it would have been very different. In the sense of also how, how careful we were in some things, and also, how polemic it was when it came out. Because...
Well, you wouldn't have even had an intimacy coordinator, I feel like, in 2012.
we wouldn't have had we wouldn't have had that. And it was, when we were trying to also find money for this film, the writer, Daniela Krien, had done a huge bestseller. She was like on the top of her game. And the film I'd done before was very successful in Germany, 3 Days in Quiberon, a black and white film that maybe you'll see once. And so my producer, who does art house films, he's like, oh, finally it's going to be easy. I have a best-selling author, I have a best-selling director. It's a story about East and West, they love it. It has sex, this is going to be... And it wasn't, because of Me Too, saying, we cannot today make a film about a love story between a young girl and an old, dark guy. That's a toxic guy. Even that word toxic didn't really exist at that time. We never.
Well, just like words probably like manipulation or consent or anything like that.
And then so it was really, and to be honest, in the novel she's 16 and she becomes 17 in the novel.
Oh, she's even younger.
She's even younger. And for a long time, Daniela and I said that's the way it's going to be. Yeah. For her, it was very much historical, because she says, no, but it doesn't make sense if she's older, because she's a year before her high school diploma, and at that time in East Germany it was like this, and It was just later that the World Sales actually, said to me, Emily, please change it, because we're not going to sell it anywhere. Even people who read, distributors around the world who really love the film, they don't want to get, backlashed or, and then, so we were thinking, okay, what do we want? We want people to see it. And at the end of the day, 17, 18, 19, girl in the country who's anyway not as far than most girls at that age there, because she's so in her bubble of Dostoevsky and reading, and she's so not the normal girl going on her, like little scooter and going partying, drinking, like most people at that age. So we thought, okay, it works. But, just to see how, and Me Too is really the best thing that could have happened for, especially in our industry, just to shake up all this abuse of power. And also it did help us as female directors also get more of a voice, which is such a fight since like 15 years. But then realizing that then it was kind of a backlash as well on me, on us. But where I said, so what? It's written by a woman, adapted by two, directed by a woman, about a young woman's desires that aren't, maybe as nice as one would think. Right. But that, it exists every day in every country. And, it's a universal thing. Some young men fall in love with older women, and some young women will still, unfortunately, fall in love with guys that are older and maybe dark or not. You know, that's just life.
Yeah.
It's the human experience.
I was going to say, yeah, it's a very human experience, and you made it very universal. I would like to see if there are any questions from the audience. I could just clearly just be enthralled with Emily's stories, too. Yes, right here.
There's so many different elements of conflict, East and West, and his brutish touch and her soft touch, and city, country. What was it like navigating those and trying to make sure that one spine stood out more than the rest of them?
I mean, it all had to. It just all had to work. It really, for me, really, it was very important as well when you talk about the political context or the family, that reunion. I just loved that reunion of how a mother could be so disappointed of her son that she stops, she cuts it, and how he suffered for so many, and the whole family suffered, and how civilians always suffer. You know, it was not it was again for egocentric, narcissistic, political male figures who after the war decided, Roosevelt was one of them, and Churchill and Stalin, and decided, here's a pen and we're going to just, this goes to you guys because you arrived first, Russians. This goes to the Allies there, and that's it. If there was two sisters living side by side and the wall was there, you're fucked. That's it. If there was kids, adult kids, it was just dramatic.
Yeah.
And how much, people lost, and then this coming together. I just loved it in her novel, that it was so human and that they really came together, because it was very difficult for some, and because East Germans had, of course, a very different, at the end of the day, capitalism won, right?
Yeah.
And they were not used to that, working that way, living that way, and so they were kind of pushed aside, saying, come on, either you jump on the train or you're not. And so that was really important, that we don't either, we don't shed, that we're very careful about how we tell this the story between them. Yeah? And also the different kinds of, even all three brothers have a different kind of view on how it should have happened. I love that. Very interesting what you're saying, country and city, for what happens for her when she goes there, or for Johannes when they go to this Munich, and what happens to Henna, where you realize the guy is not going to make it in a way, in this new world that's opened. Whereas she, even though it's weird and they're curious and we feel they will make it.
Yes. And then I would leave you with asking a question. Right here. And I,
So I got one more for you here. When you talk about the layer, the physicality, the intensity, and yet that last sentence, right? Someday we will tell each other everything.
Yes.
And the energy and the spirituality of that space that is applied in that context. And that's where it just leaves the audience, right? That what was the intention of that closing sentence?
It was actually the closing sentence of the novel, but it wasn't that clear that we were gonna use it. It was a very, very, very difficult and challenging work with the editor, this end of the film. How do you end this film? I even shot a scene 6 months later where she's living with her mom in a small town. And you see she's studying and gets up to the balcony and smokes a cigarette. And she has shorter hair. And Malena, the actress, who has hair like this, you saw it. I'd written it, and she's like, so you want me to cut my hair? And I was like, oh, I'd love you to cut your hair. She says, Yeah, and then she says, I always wanted short hair, so she cut her hair. And then I didn't use it.
Oh, the magic of filmmaking.
That was the best way to end. It's such a brutal end. And when you read the novel for the first time, it won't be like that for you because you just can't believe he's dead. You would go back and say, I think I didn't read properly. Mm-hmm. It's such a brutal end, but it's a perfect end. And and the last word means that she will tell Johannes, she will tell the family maybe,
It's actually really hopeful. I actually think that
Yeah.
we do have to wrap up this lovely conversation. So
Yes,
please, thank you to
so
Emily for
much.
joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for staying. We hope to see you at one final film. This
Yes.
film is remarkable.
It's
Like,
coming
truly.
out in America in June, first in New York, but also in LA.
Yes, please tell your friends.
do-
See this movie in a movie theater.
Yeah,
Help
yeah.
art houses, and then it will help
Yes.
Emily's work continue to be seen by other people. Thank you.